Hey, everybody. My guest on the show today is Mark LaChance, or if you're fancy, LaChance. LaChance. Yeah, I'm terrible. He is the CEO of Maxy Media. He's a best-selling author, and he is an expert on blitz scaling companies. For those who don't know what that means, we're going to find out. I do happen to know what that means. I actually read the book, and I'm really excited to talk to you, Mark. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Yeah, where are you coming in from?
South Florida. I lived in Canada for 22 years and then decided to get out of the cold weather and spend Decembers and all the winters in Florida. So excited.
Yeah, well, I'm in New York, and it was 22 here this morning, 22 Fahrenheit. So
22 Fahrenheit.
Enjoy that.
Wow.
22 Fahrenheit. But it's the weird time of year where now it's 43. Those are like 20 degrees in 2 hours. Yeah. Well, I have to start as we get to know each other, because Mark and I have never met before. About 8 minutes ago on this podcast. I'm from Minnesota, so I've been called an honorary Canadian many times. Would you agree that Minnesotans are honorary Canadians, or maybe people from Buffalo?
Far different accent, though. You've got sort of that Swedish twang to your.
You betcha. You betcha. Oh yeah.
I call you honorary Swedes or Scandinavians. That's what I call
Yeah, that's probably more accurate. A lot of Johnsons and Bjornsons.
But it was funny, actually. I have a story about that. When I used to be a sports agent, I had to go to Minnesota often because I was representing hockey players. And the first time I walked into a restaurant, I was like, I've never seen more blonde people in my life than in Minnesota. I was like, wow, it's incredible. And then I went to Sweden and I was like, it makes sense now. You know? Yeah.
Well, what's really funny about that is my parents are from Kansas. And for those who can't see me, I have dark brown hair. My wife is half pure Norwegian, and we have our kids, blonde hair, blue eyes. Like, they look like little Norwegian kids all the way. So I'm really glad that they got those genes from my wife, because my wife is light blonde hair, blue eyes.
Awesome.
She fit right in. All right, Mark. So let's dig in here. So first question for you is, what's something that you nerd out about?
I nerd out about, I would have to say, personal development. I mean, if you look at my YouTube feed, if you look at my bookshelf, which is right there, all personal development stuff. I mean, books on leadership, books on, being healthier, bigger, stronger, faster. That's my nerd capabilities.
Oh man.
Personal development.
We're going to get along great. What's a great personal development book you've read recently?
Well, I'm reading, I'll call this, it's on my desk right here.
Yeah.
So it is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
It's a great title.
It actually teaches you how to ask the right questions so you don't make the same stupid mistakes all over again, right?
I also love that title because it's like, it's still going to be stupid, but it's just going to be less stupid than it could have been because we're still going to make mistakes.
That's right.
That's great. My first coach used to call personal development books shelf help books, which I thought was really funny, because most people read them and then they go back on the shelf, never to be seen again, or you buy them and they never get read. And I said, oh, that's interesting. But my assertion is that you actually do read those books over there and implement them. Well, and also blitzscaling is a book. So
it is a book, and it's sitting right there, and I'm looking right at it. But I could look at book, for example, Never Split the Difference, right?
Yeah, it's a great book.
Right. So that thing's been off the shelf 1,000 times. Tools of Titans, Tell to Win. Another one that comes off the shelf all the time is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Comes off, but my go-to is Winning by Jack Welch, because he literally breaks down how to run a business and how to scale a business and how to bring in the right people and how to fire the wrong people. And there you go. So A to Z.
You got some good role models there. I've read Extreme Ownership, but I listened to Extreme Ownership. That is a trip. You probably heard Jocko's voice. There's no other job on the planet he could ever have done besides be a Navy SEAL. When you hear him talk, like that, this dude is so scary even listening to him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like I sometimes wonder if that's actually his voice, because it's just too perfect for what he does, but maybe that's, get trained into you.
I saw him. He was on Rogan's podcast, I think last week. I was listening to him. It's a real voice. That's him.
Frightening. Right? And yeah, Chris Voss Never Split the Difference. We're going to talk about your black swan today at some point. We're going to get into what your black swan is. Here we go. All right. So let's see. This would be a great question for you, Mark. What's something that's inside of your comfort zone, and you know that it is outside of somebody else's comfort zone?
Public speaking. I was at a course which I'll reference a couple of times this weekend. Maybe you know Rene Rodriguez. He's actually from Minnesota. He does a course called Amplify, and it's about influence. And speaking in front confidently is in my comfort zone, but it's definitely not within, I would say, 99.9% of the population's comfort zone.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to say that I was A+. I did pretty well, but there was a lot of work to do. So, but I'm not afraid to make mistakes. That's the point.
Yeah. Do you get nervous before speaking?
Depends the size of the crowd and who's in the crowd. So
yeah, me too.
It depends who's in. So this weekend I wasn't nervous, but I think maybe you know Dan Sullivan.
Yeah,
part of his free zone group, which is the higher level group. When I have to stand in front of that group because it's filled with high level entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires, I get a bit nervous.
Yeah. I would say for me, I do a lot of speaking. For me, I get nervous to speak when I know there's a lot of people in the audience that can call bullshit on me. Like if you're speaking to a room of people where you know more than anybody else, great. If you're in a room, like just to use a random example, and you're a surgeon and you're speaking to a group of other surgeons who arguably may be known more than you, that's a fraught with risk speaking engagement.
That's right.
Yeah. Interesting. I do know who Dan Sullivan is. So now let's take the flip of that, Mark. What's something that is outside of your comfort zone and you know it's going to be inside of somebody else's?
Editing videos. We've got a team of editors, and I'm terrible at it. I won't do it. I can't do it. So editing videos, and I'll even extend that to anything tech.
Although you're not a tech person.
I run a tech company, so to speak, but that's not in my unique ability. Let's put it that way.
Oh, interesting. So you just hire out for it?
Absolutely.
Smart.
And that's how you blitz scale a company, because you cannot be the best in everything.
No. Have you ever tried editing a video?
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, this is terrible? No,
I'm like, first of all, it takes, what could take one of my Gen Zers 30 seconds takes me 3 hours. So it's like, why am I going to waste my time doing this?
All right.
It's just not in my anyway, not my skill
set. All right, Mark, I have a really specific challenge for you. When I release this episode, I want you specifically to create a reel promoting the episode, but you have to do it yourself.
You got it.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. Like, let's have one of your Gen Z.
I tell you, I'll have one of my. I'll do it, but I'll have my team members do it. How about that? Deal?
You'll be like, You'll be like, Jason, I will make it happen. I won't say how it's going to happen or who's going to do it. That's good. I don't love editing videos. I'm pretty good at tech, but editing videos just doesn't excite me at all. I just don't care either. It also seems a little like people that are younger know how to do it easier because of the platforms they use. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you. All right, Mark. So you said you do a lot of speaking. You're in a high level speaking groups. Now I'm going to give you 5 minutes, not here on the podcast, but hypothetically 5 minutes. And you get to speak to the whole world on one topic for 5 minutes. In other words, this is your big message to the world that you want us to know. What is it that you would talk to us about? And then what would be your call to action at the end of your speech?
So the topic would be leadership. And the call to action at the end of the speech would be, again, you asked me in the beginning, what do I geek out on? Well, it's learning leadership and reading personal development. So the call to action would be, if you want to be, we need more leaders. As you know, the government's run so well right now, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah, that's great.
There you go. So don't we need more leaders? So the call to action is learn to be a leader and, actually lead, do a good job leading, which is pathetic right now in my view, but we don't have to go down that road.
Yeah. Well, so Mark, I have a question for you. You're the CEO. You have people that work for you, right? Mm-hmm. People that work for you, around you. How do you address it when you see a lack of leadership on your own team? What you perceive as a lack of leadership?
Well, you first coach and you give directives. So let me give you a story around that. So
yeah,
let's say that. So what happened recently? So I saw that one of our leaders actually would be taking projects on and completing them herself rather than delegating out. So you have to take that. Look, as a leader, you need to learn how to delegate. You need to be able to give. I'm not going to call it, not mundane tasks is the wrong word, but you get what I mean. Like the tasks that are outside of should be in your wheelhouse. Like you should be doing high level stuff like this particular person, business development and, driving a new business rather than doing the make busy stuff, the hiding behind the emails, the hiding behind the creating the marketing brochure, blah, blah, blah. So you first need to educate them on that and find out if there's fear, because typically there's always fear. So why, and I learned this through sales. I've run sales teams forever. And you always find out that the salesperson that's not doing their job, it's because they're afraid and they're doing make busy BS is what I call it. So you first have to educate, coach. And if they don't understand it after 2 or 3 coaching sessions, then it's not the right person. Then they're not truly fit for that role.
Yeah. Then you bring in the Jack Welch school and you go, you're a C player.
Differentiation. You're out.
You're out.
There you go.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's, this is my wheelhouse of the kind of work I do. It's interesting. What I see a lot, and I don't know if this resonates for you before we go to the commercial break here, but I see a lot that a lot of people just don't know how. They've either not had it modeled for them. So I work with a lot of senior leaders, but also people like they're in their first managerial role, their first non-individual contributor role, where they get promoted because they're good at the technical skill or something, and they get promoted in. And they either don't get support from the company because either the company doesn't have that support because they're a startup, or a bigger company, they just don't have the training programs, and or it wasn't modeled to them from their leadership. So they think, and it's the managing versus leading thing. What do you have to say to somebody who's listening who says, hey, I think I'm a good manager, but I need work on leading? Like, Mark, help me to be a better leader. What would you what would you offer to somebody like that?
Well, I would point them to a list of probably 20 books to start reading, podcasts to start listening to, because I think a lot of people say, oh, leaders are born. I used to think that, but I don't believe that now. I think that you can learn to be a great leader. You can learn to cast influence and to cast a vision, and you can learn to, be an expert in any sort of discipline that you want. And leadership is one of them, right?
Yeah.
But you have to want to, and you have to, take it on. Like look, this is my job. I need to become a leader, and you can, but a lot of people see confidence. What I saw that clearly this weekend, right? So we had 14 people in our group, and you could see that confidence is a huge key in anything, and upbringing is a lot of it. So a lot of people were told they were, you're a piece of doo-doo, or you're not worth anything, or you'll never be successful. And it's carried with them throughout their adult life till they die.
Sure.
So, one of the methods is, look, your father told you were not worth anything. Forgive him. Let it go. And once you let it go, and this one woman, this was incredible. Her ex-husband dead for 10 years. She had no confidence because he literally sucked it out of her. But the gentleman in front was like, listen, forgive him. Go tonight and write out your letter. Forgive him. The next day she came. You should have seen this woman completely transformed. She handed the coach the 5 pages of forgiveness letter, and she was a completely different person. But she's been holding that for years. So anyway, it's forgiveness on the person that degraded you forever. You don't have to hold that with you forever, right? So
yeah, that's awesome. I'm so with you. And I've been on a real personal development journey the last 4.5, 5 years. What I've learned, I don't know if this has been your experience throughout your life, but a lot of this stuff is actually therapeutic. And Absolutely. Like lack of confidence or feeling the need to perform in a certain way or do a certain thing, or, I really resonate with the some people, like they were told they're not good enough, so they're going to do everything in their power to prove that they're good enough by making $1 billion or whatever. And that's great. Like, I think that's all really interesting ways of driving, but like the idea that you're good enough without having to actually do anything, which is also a concept that's foreign to most people.
That's right. That's right. So
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. There's this gentleman, I'll call him Joe, nice guy, but this guy had zero confidence, but he was high level in politics 20, 30 years ago in his town, like the highest level. And when he got up to speak, he had no confidence at all. And it was like, I couldn't believe I know this, but a person that actually achieved that height came, lost confidence and had certain things happen to him. So I guess the point is you always have to continue to build your confidence, build your leadership skills and learn, because if you stop learning, something might knock you down, but you need to continue on and continue to achieve and strive to be better and smarter and faster every single day. That's what I think.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, we're going to take a brief commercial break and we'll be right back after this.
The Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram. Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on Talking to Cool People.
All right, Mark, we're back talking leadership. We're talking public speaking. We're talking about how you're not going to edit the video for this podcast, which maybe your people can do some stuff for me as well. So at this point, just want to check in and see what else is it that you would like us to know about you?
Well, I wrote a book called The Lucky Formula. I don't know if you spoke about this yet, but it's all about...
Haven't yet, but we will.
Well, here's the luck, actually. So you might ask, like, what does this guy know about luck? Well, you see my last name, LaChance or LaChance, that actually means luck in French. So that totally qualifies me to write a book about luck.
That's it. Whatever your last name means.
My name means it.
That's great.
And the fact that my nickname was Lucky growing up, so that qualifies me to write about luck. Totally.
I mean, that's the perfect hockey name, Lucky LaChance.
There you go. That's right.
That's it. That's great.
Yeah. Well, speaking about hockey, both of my brothers played professional. One played 13 years in the National Hockey League, played on the U.S. Olympic team. So that was a pretty cool journey to watch him through that. So it is a hockey name, and it actually was a hockey name. There you go.
Yeah. I love that. What, how do you define luck?
I think luck is in my book, it's synonymous with success, right? So how do you get luck and how do you get success? To me, it's the same thing, but you stack the odds in your favor to really cash in at success. And what does that mean? That means doing the little things, stacking the little things, the little positivities on top of each other so that finally one day it comes back to you. Like, for example, when you wake up in the morning. So do you wake up in the morning and say, oh, woe is me, today's going to be terrible? Or do you jump out of bed and say, I can't wait for today, and my 3 wins of yesterday were this and this and this, and, affirm to yourself that you're great, and you're fired up, and you're awesome, and you're lucky, and blah, blah, blah. So which one? Let me ask you that question. Which one are you? Are you the victim when you wake up, or are you the fired up person when you wake up?
Oh, I'm the fired up person now. I was definitely a victim for a significant portion of my corporate career.
Okay, so here's another question for you.
Yeah.
So if you wake up as the victim, do you think you're going to get lucky that day?
Well, I worked in sales, so it's all based on hope, right? It's just based on hope that something's lucky, and I don't feel like there's any control over that.
I'll refute that, and I'll say if you're doing things over and over again, and you're doing them to elicit a positive response, you're gonna get lucky. Things are gonna happen. I'll give you a great example. So last year I was at Dave Asprey's event, right? His longevity event, and so I'm into personal development. I'm into building longevity stuff like that. Blah blah blah. So ends up that I was at the lunch, and a woman sits next to me with her daughter. So I start talking to the daughter. I said, oh, what do you do? She's like, oh, I'm a pro tennis player. I'm like, that's cool. She was ranked at the time 25th in the world. And then I start talking to the mother, and I'm like, so what do you do? She's like, I'm the president of the Buffalo Sabres. I'm like, cool. A woman president of the Buffalo Sabres.
That's so cool.
Right? It was cool. So I started talking about certain players. And then I look at her name tag, and her name was Kim Pagula. And if you're a football fan, you know the last name, right? Buffalo
Pagula.
Bills. Exactly.
Yeah.
The Buffalo. So I'm like, yeah, you're not only the owner, you're not only the president, you're the owner, right? So, but the point is that, we're a TikTok, my media company is a TikTok powerhouse. And I was asking her marketing questions. And I said, hey, so what is your challenge? Well, our challenge is that we've got a clientele that's 50-year-old males. I said, well, why don't you look at other ways to get the message out to Gen Z, which is TikTok. So I got on the phone and I called my creative team and I said, I need our top 5 Gen Zers to make me 10 videos. So within 2 hours, I got her over 10 videos. And but the point is, we're still going back and forth. The Buffalo Bills might be our client, but was that luck that I sat next to her? Or was it the fact that I do personal development? I'm concerned about health and longevity, and she happened to be sitting there. I put myself in that position. So that's the point.
Yeah. I have the same operating model for my life where maybe it's luck that you were sitting next to her, like it's luck, quote, air quotes. But when you are in the position to help somebody, you're ready to rock. You're ready with something to support them, to help them with. You were ready to just offer something up that you heard for her immediately. And I love that. That's been my experience too. And I said it, I victim my corporate career. I don't feel that way anymore. And I have a lot of that experience of luck as well. Like people on this podcast, people I work with.
Yeah, but hold on, Jason. Is it luck? It's not luck because you're on the podcast, you're hustling every day, and you're going to get, I'll call it serendipity. It's not luck. So eventually somebody is going to end up on your podcast that can help you out, that can lead to something huge. So it's about putting yourself in the right position and asking the right questions, period.
And asking the right questions. Well, that's a good segue, Mark. I don't know. I think maybe you did that on purpose. I'm not sure, but this is the part of the show where I call it the Aja. It's Ask Jason Anything. And since we've known each other now for about 28 minutes, I'm a little scared based on what I know about you, but in a good way, because I feel like it's going to be a real personal development question. But yeah, Mark, what can I answer for you?
Can I have 2 questions?
Yes.
Look at that. Okay. So I'd like to understand, I understand you as a personal development guy. I understand that, you like to educate yourself. So what are you afraid of?
Are we talking like internal or external?
No, let me rephrase that. So,
okay.
In terms of business, first, what are your goals in business right now? Talk to me in 5 years. Where do you want to be?
And this is a good question for me. I am not a huge 5-year, 10-year plan person.
Talk to me in 1 year. Where do you want to be?
Yeah. 1 year, I want to be doing what I'm doing now with continued ideal clients, which I'm fortunate enough I already do. And this is a very timely question. I'm really working on my speaking career next year. So getting on bigger stages, charging more, that's the additional thing for my business that I see is fitting in. The other thing that I want to do is run masterminds, which it sounds like you're in a speaking mastermind. I'm in a mastermind. It's awesome. And setting up my own, because I love building community. I love people. I love supporting people in that way. So 2 like tangible things would be more mastermind work and more speaking.
Okay.
Be the goal.
So I had this exact same conversation 2 days ago with the gentleman I mentioned earlier. Right. And this exact same conversation. So the question is, do you understand what it takes to get to the next level? And if so, what are the steps you need to take? And I think, like, if you look at there's a couple people to look at that are doing this at a high level. You've got the Tony Robbins, the Dan Sullivans, but you also got, come down a level, you got Peter Crone, you got guys like that who speak at a very high level, and he's doing amazingly well. And I believe he told me his income. I'm not going to say it on this show, but it's phenomenal. So, how do you think you're going to get there? How do you think you're going to be at the top of the food chain versus not?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you said top of the food chain, because that actually isn't my goal. I'm a real iterator. And I know that, like, I think this comes from a sales background, is knowing it's going to be doing the work. And the work is spreading the word. Like I'm sure you've done for years, spreading the word, being unafraid to tell people what I do and who I do it for and how I could be of value. Again, I think this is something very likely you align with. And then there's just some tactical things like Mastermind is, quite frankly, when you use LinkedIn marketing to do that, to find my people, because, it only goes, as a human, you can only go so far in your circles. And then for speaking, again, some tacticals, I have access to some things of conferences, and then also just a support network of people who know other good speakers. And this from being in speaking groups, speakers are amazing. Most speakers are amazing because they only speak on one thing. So if they run into a conference organizer who's like, hey, we need somebody who speaks on this, it's usually not even competitive. And if it is competitive, most speakers I know are very generous people because they have enough work. Maybe not during COVID, the beginning of COVID, but now it's like, oh, I know Mark, he speaks on video editing. I don't speak on video editing. Hey, you got to talk to Mark and have him at your conference. He's a video editing guy.
There you go.
Which is, we'll probably not have you for that one, but that's what I think that is. And just for me, at the end of the day, the thing about luck, and I don't call it luck, is just being unafraid to share with people who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and how it's valuable.
And then
that is very magnetic.
I'm going to add to that, but taking the right steps.
Please.
So here's one thing I'll counsel you. And the gentleman said,
please,
his career took off when he wrote his book, and his book became a bestseller. So if you want to do that, I think the passageway or the entry key is a book in speaking. You have to have a book, or I don't believe that you can be a speaker, in my view. This is my view, Jason. So.
No, it's funny, Mark, because anybody who knows me knows I hate writing. So the idea of writing a book,
but I'm going to educate you on this. You don't need to be the writer. You can be the speaker that has somebody else write the book. I'm not going to say that's what I did, but maybe I did.
You're like, I've heard through the grapevine you can hire ghostwriters. Yeah, I get pitched. I get pitched this on LinkedIn all the time. Yeah, I heard it through the grapevine. I get pitched this on LinkedIn all the time, right? Like, we help blank write best-selling books. I have some brand strategy clients who are authors.
Uh-huh.
I just hate writing. It's why I'm a podcaster. So for me, I have this barrier.
But again, you could take your podcast, put it in the hands of the right person, and then all of a sudden that podcast becomes a book. But anyway, look, it's just my opinion. I think book.
No, I think it's the right. I know it's the right move. Well, that's the right move also for a lot of speakers and authors I work with, because then when you're pitching your speaking, you say, and by the way, I'll bring books. People can sign them at the back.
Exactly.
And then you're an expert. You're automatically an expert if you have a book on something that's something.
Exactly.
We'll see. I told my friend Amber 3 years ago, I'm like, I'm never writing a book, which means I might write a book.
Well, I said the same thing until COVID hit, and I saw how ridiculous things were, and I'm like, you know what? I may as well write a book. I'm going to be a best-selling author. That's how ridiculous this thing is.
Yeah. You're like, oh, speaking career with no stages open. That's going to be a little more challenging right now. Great questions, Mark. Great questions. All right. You heard it here first. December 5th, 2022 with Mark. LaChance, that maybe there's a 1% chance I'll write a book.
Jason 100% will write a book. That's what I heard. Man. That's what I heard.
Oh man. I like what you heard there. That's good. All right, Mark, I got some more questions for you. So what are you passionate about?
Passionate about leadership, passionate about winning. So if there's an assessment called PRINT, PRINT, and I did the assessment and I got a 7.3. The 7 is your predominant, right? Your predominant sort of personality trait. And the second number is your lesser predominant. So I was a 7.
Like Enneagram. It's kind of like Enneagram.
I guess I don't know what that is, but the 7 means that I want to have fun and do things that are cool and fun. And the 3 means win. And that was perfectly. So I want to have fun and win. So to me, winning is fun. You get it? So I want to win.
You and I are very, like, I'm the exact same way. Have you ever taken Clifton Strengths before? It used to be called Strengths Finder.
I have not. I've done my Colby assessment, but I think I'm taking that with the coach group soon, by the way.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's owned by Gallup now, the big polling company, but
let me see.
I used to be number 1 competition was my number 1 strength out of the 34. Now it's number 9.
It's called Clifton Strength, huh?
It used to be called Strengths Finder 2.0. Then they was bought by Gallup, and they changed it to Clifton Strengths, which Dr. Don Clifton was the creator of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're probably high in competition.
Could be.
Probably very high in competition.
I would bet you're right.
Yeah.
No, I don't have it.
Yeah, well, in competition, and just to give you a little bit of background on this, competition, it not only doesn't mean you like to compete, but it means that you are intrinsically motivated by winning. Some people are intrinsically motivated by finishing things. Others are motivated by starting things. You're most intrinsically motivated but to win and compete against others or yourself. Also, you can just compete with yourself.
That's what my print showed. So yes, you got me. You nailed it.
There it is. All right, my work's done here. All right, it's been a great conversation, Mark. See you later. Bye. Now, so passionate leadership. What about in your personal life? What are you passionate about? I mean, leadership is everywhere, but yeah.
Yeah, but my kids are in judo, and nice. So they compete at a pretty high level on a national level. So
shocking.
Lots of tournaments, and they train 5 days a week, sometimes 6, and I love to go watch them compete. So that's a lot of fun. It's kind of cool. I leave actually, it's not true. I was going to say I leave my cell phone on the side and I just watch them practice, but it's not true because we launched a TikTok page called The Judo Kids, and I'm the actual video guy. So I'm not the editor, but I'm the video guy. So if you look at TikTok, The Judo Kids, you know the guy behind the video. That's me. There
it is. It's Mark. So I have a young, our son is 2, so he's probably a little young, but what age did you get them into martial arts? I think that's a really cool discipline for children to do.
Well, I'll be honest. My kids actually broke my heart when he was 5 or 6. My eldest, I have a 10 and a 7, and I put him in hockey. Obviously, it was the first sport I put him in because we grew up as a hockey family. And he turns out either I pushed him too hard, I'm not sure, or he just didn't like it, but he quit at 6 years old. So I was forced to find another sport, and I figured, martial arts would be a perfect sport for him. So I put him first in jiu-jitsu. And then, so jiu-jitsu happened. They both did jiu-jitsu for about a year, and then pandemic came and everything was shut down. But hopefully you're not recording this. There was one gym open where I was living that was open underground, and it was and they did judo. So that's where we went from jiu-jitsu to judo. Yeah. And they loved it ever since. So there it is.
There it is. That's the pandemic success story.
That's it.
There's one gym that was staying open, so they didn't get closed. I won't ask if they got any PPP from the government. It's all good. We don't. Well,
this was Canada. It was way different though. It was Canada. Yeah. Everything was like restaurants, gyms, office buildings, schools shut down, and and this was for months on end. So we had to find a place to work out. Just so happened we found a judo gym, and then they switched. So there you go. That's how we got in.
Then you decided to take the opposite approach and move to Florida.
There you go.
They're like, COVID. What's that?
Exactly. We had another lockdown, and restaurants are closed again. So we had 2 stretches. Actually, what happened was we not only did restaurants, gyms, and schools were closed, but we had a curfew. I had, as a 50-year-old guy, I had to be in my house at 8:00. And I was like, they did it again. And I'm like, I'm out. Forget this. Is just ridiculous.
You're like, I'm moving to the States. And which state in the United States would be the best place to not have this? Florida, for sure. Florida.
I'm picking. That was our barometer. I'm picking the most free state in the world, and it's Florida.
Exactly, the most free state. All right, Mark. What's the thing that you're most proud of?
Business wise, personal wise. You want to qualify that or?
No, I do not.
You don't. I would have to say all of it. So
whatever you want to share.
The fact that I learned how to scale businesses. So our current company has 300 employees. The last one I had that I sold in 2016 built it to about 215. One before that I built to about 240. So the fact that I understand leadership and I understand. So that's it. It's understanding how to lead and empower people versus the way I used to be, which was a tyrant. So I'm proud that I was able to learn how to make that switch, right, from being a tyrant and being a pretty tough boss to being an empowering boss that people want to win for. You know what I mean? So that was a good switch.
Yeah, that's a great switch. Are you present to when that was that you were able to make that switch, or what was the catalyst for it?
Catalyst was a meditation technique that I took a meditation course called Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation. Silent.
I've heard. I had another guest on it. A friend of mine, Lauren, did a 10-day silent meditation.
There you go. Transformational completely. Because you learn why was I so fiery or so, let's say, emotional, is because I had chemicals in my body and it would elicit responses. So I couldn't take something that had an emotional charge to it and look at it and then decide to let it go. I couldn't do that. I had no capability to do that. But what this did is it showed me how to do that. So
I'm always reminded of the Viktor Frankl quote.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm always reminded of that, like the moment when what separates us is like, oh, I actually have a choice in how I want to be about this thing. Yeah, exactly. What I want to do with it. Also really valuable with young children. You're like,
it teaches you not to explode right away.
Explode.
That's right.
All right. I'm excited to ask you this question, Mark, since you're a personal development person. What's something that you're afraid might actually be true about you?
I'm afraid that might actually be true about me. That there's something that I'm afraid of. Maybe.
So what do you do to compensate for that fear?
It's an interesting question, huh? I never got that question before. Well, let's put it this way. If you do strategic coach, we talk a lot about unique ability. So if you're staying in your lane, stay in your lane and get somebody else to do the thing that you're afraid to do because you suck at it. That's the best answer I can give. Right. So for example, we spoke about editing. I'm not going to edit. So here's a good story. So we're the number one advertiser on the TikTok platform, number one in the country. So we spend more than all the big tech platforms, banks, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Right. But the point is, I don't know anything on how to edit videos, media buy, because I have the best people in the world to do it. So I shouldn't have that fear, because if I understand how to bring in the people that are better than me to do it, then there should be no fear. So I'm going to take that back. I don't have a fear, because if I can't do it, I'll find somebody that can do it. How about that?
Welcome to self-coaching.
Then the fear might be this, that I can't find a person to do what I can't do.
Have you had that experience in your business career?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going through it right now. So we're looking to scale big time. And it's difficult to find certain people that have, Jack Welch's, 4 P's and 1 E. A lot of times it's difficult to find that person. So yes, we have. But you have to continue just to, uncover those rocks and you'll find it.
Yeah. All right. We're going to start to wrap up here, Mark. Let's see. How do you see the world?
Well, if you spend your day reading the news and reading Twitter and listening to all the crazy things that are happening, you might be a bit negative on the world. But if you pull your head out of the news and Twitter and all that other stuff, you might be optimistic about the world. So it just depends on where you're putting your focus, right? So if you're focusing on, personal growth, positive things, then you're just going to see great things and positivity. But if you focus on the other side, there's plenty of crazy things going on right now, Jason. I'm sure offline we can have some pretty candid conversations, but it just depends where you focus, right? So I sometimes get sucked into it, but I have to pull myself out and delete Twitter and focus on positivity.
Yeah. So when you get up every morning, most mornings, because you are human, I've seen you, you're a real human. I'm not talking to a robot, or a very well done robot. If you are, is, most days you wake up and you see the world as a pretty positive place.
Absolutely.
And then, and anything that you see is like, hey, you just shove it to the side or not pay attention or don't believe it.
Well, there's a couple of things. So that meditation technique I told you about teaches you how to sort of block out the stupidity, if you will. And I do another meditation technique every single day, which is inner engineering. So that's one. Read a great book called Mind Power, which helps you to cut negative messages in your brain. So you literally teaches you how to cut the message and then focus on something else. So John Kehoe is the author of that one. So Mind Power. It's a good book, great book. So it gives you tips and tricks and techniques how to do that.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Shad Helmstetter?
No.
I had him on my podcast last year in 2021. He's one of the statesmen of kind of the positive thinking thing. He's got a bunch of books, interesting person. And when I asked him what he's afraid is true about him, he said nothing. I've learned how to block all negative thoughts on my brain. And I was like, well, he's probably in his late 60s, early 70s. A part of me wanted to argue with him and be like, that seems unrealistic, but then also maybe that's possible. I wish I could do
think
that.
It is. I actually think it is possible. Other than, let's say, I had armed people ran into my house with guns. I'm pretty sure he would be worried about that. There are things. I'm worried about getting drafted.
From a logical. Yeah, exactly.
About getting drafted in the military, right?
Exactly. All right, Mark, let's talk about how people can connect with you, find you. Let's talk Maxy Media. Let's talk the book. What do you want us to know about all of that good stuff that you're up to?
Well, I'll give you a gift, yourself and your listeners. And the gift is the Lucky Quiz. So you can go to theluckyformula.com/quiz. Again, theluckyformula.com/quiz. Take the Lucky Quiz. It scores you on a score from 0 to 100. And it gives you your luck score. How, what's your ability to catch luck? So Jason, I suggest that you do it because it's actually pretty cool to see your score.
Yeah.
And then it gives you tips and tricks on how to increase your luck capabilities.
Very cool.
So that's one way. Next way is Instagram. You can find me at Mr. Mister Lucky Official. And those are the two ways you can connect with me right now.
No, that sounds great, Mark. I had a question for you on the Mr. Lucky. When did you land on that? Like, how long ago did you land on that as a moniker? Because it's just so cool.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, my name LaChance means luck, and my nickname was Lucky. I had Lucky in the back of my hockey helmet growing up, so it was just an easy transition to Mr. Lucky, and I think probably about 10 years ago.
I love it. Does your staff call you that by any chance?
No, nobody.
You go by Mark.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people call me Lucky, but it's far. Actually, it's funny. If I go back to my high school reunion, they still call me Lucky.
Yeah. I also had so my last name is Frizzell, but growing up, everybody called me Frazzle except for my parents, including like teachers, athletic coaches, friends. I was Fraz or Frazzle. Nobody called me Jason.
Fraz. You'd be Fraz in hockey for sure.
Yeah, I was Fraz, and like what was cool, I was a baseball player, so they call me like Frazzle Dazzle, which is a perfect nickname for like a second baseman. Although I don't know that I ever lived up to it totally, but I totally get that. I liked it. I kind of wish people would still call me that. I mean, this is my inner child stuff coming out here. This is the personal development work that I need to do on. This is what I'm afraid. I'm no longer Frazzle. I'm just like dad now.
Jason.
My white dad now.
Jason.
I'm just Jason. Just Jason, the non-author. Now I'm just have shame about the book as well.
You're going to do it. I tell you, that's in your future.
I know.
I can see it.
We'll see. Maybe if I can just record like a 20-hour podcast and then just transcribe it and release that as my book. Yeah, I know you can. I use transcription all the time for speaking.
There you go.
So we've got the quiz. I'm going to put that in the show notes. That sounds super cool. I'm definitely going to take that. We're going to connect with you on Instagram. And now, Mark, last thing, as you mentioned Instagram, I always like to have a tradition that my guests give us some words of wisdoms, and they should be short and sweet, fit on an Instagram post. So what's some words of wisdom you got for us?
The words of wisdom would be, well, I'll give you my formula, which is I plus E plus A equals luck. And that's internal mastery plus external mastery plus action equals luck. And, that I guess nobody's going to know what that really means, but it's about mastering yourself internally, mastering yourself externally, and then taking action, because you can do all the personal development, all the reading, all the whatever you want. But if you're not taking action and you're afraid to take action, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. And I love that as we wrap here, taking it back to Clifton Strengths again. One of the things in that, when you take that assessment, is they call it the shadow of the strengths. And it's when you know you're overutilizing it. And now every strength has a shadow. Competition is pretty simple. Like people think you're an asshole if they're not competitive. It's usually the downside of that. One of the strengths is learner.
Actually, I have a story around that if you want to hear that.
Yeah, I'll bet. One of the strengths is learner, and the shadow of the learner's strength is you learn all this stuff, but you don't do anything with it.
Right. Exactly. There you go.
Which is why I think my first coach was like, oh, shelf help books. Oh, like, oh, you've read all those things on how to be the best you can be. How's that going? She didn't quite say it to me that way, but oh, look, if it was easy as having a great marriage or being the best parent, I would just read the book and be done with it and just go, oh, that's great. I got everything I need. But no, you got to do the work and you got to go out and practice and be in action around it.
Exactly.
So Mark, let's wrap with that quick story since you mentioned a competition asshole story.
Well, so I'm a fairly confident person because look, I'm doing well in business, but I don't believe I'm cocky. I really don't think so. I don't think I'm arrogant. But so I walked into this event and I was just being myself. And because I've spoken many times, maybe call it 100 times in front, maybe more, 200, 300 times in front of crowds 50 and above, it came fairly easy to me. So it's funny that because I delivered the first speech I delivered was fairly decent. And he asked us to score ourselves on a 0 or a 1. And I'm like, I think that was a 1.
A 0 or a 1?
A 0 meaning you totally bombed it, or a 1, you did okay. Anyway, that was just his tactic, right? So I said 1. And then the way I delivered that came across as cocky, I guess, and arrogant until the people got to know. So 3 people said later they thought I was arrogant or an asshole, like you say, right? But I think it's because of maybe the crowd that I was in versus the level where I'm at in business. So I guess it was misconstrued. I don't think I'm arrogant. I don't know. You think I'm arrogant, Jason, or what?
Yeah, totally.
There you go.
Anyway, I like it. No, you don't strike me as arrogant. You strike me as confident in what you do, and I think it's based on what you just said.
Yeah, there you go.
You've done a lot of. I mean, this is most people that I know, and I'm surrounded by these people who do a lot of personal development work, generate a sense of confidence.
There you go. Exactly.
Because you have uncovered. This is my guess. You've uncovered some of those darker parts about yourself, and you can actually name them and see them, and you also have uncovered the best part about yourself and the thing that's most naturally you, which most people will be confident when that happens. That's been my experience for myself too, is like, oh, I actually just realized this is the best me. Of course I'm then going to be confident in that way versus playing a role. I'm spending time doing things I'm not good at. Like, of course you're going to be more confident as well when you spend most of your time doing things you're good at.
That's right.
Because you're going to get the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, oh, I'm a great CEO and I'm great at blitzscaling things. Cool. If you were spending all day practicing editing reels on TikTok or editing TikTok, and you continue to struggle with it, you would probably lose your confidence a little bit.
Exactly.
So it makes total sense. So it's like really like leaning into the things you love.
There you go.
I love that, Mark. Well, I'm really glad we got a chance to connect and hang out here today. Wish you and the team the best of success. We'll have you back on in the new year. We'll talk about some more things. I have a feeling you got all sorts of stories over there we're going to need to bring back on to hear more from you. Thanks so much for being on.
You got it, Frazzle dazzle.
Thanks, Lucky.
There you go.
Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and give us a shout out or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.